During a family gathering, my daughter-in-law revealed, "You've never truly contributed to us." Clara felt her heart drop as Beth's accusation echoed around the table, piercing the joyful chatter that typically filled their Thanksgiving gatherings. She had anticipated a warm atmosphere, the kind that wrapped around her like a homemade quilt, but instead, sharp words sliced through the comfort of familiarity. Clara's gaze flicked to her son, who looked equally stunned, caught in the crossfire of familial loyalty and shared history. Was it true? Had decades spent nurturing her family only led to this moment of betrayal? Underneath the mahogany table, Clara clenched her fists tightly, straining to hold back an ocean of sorrow mixed with anger. Hadn't she sacrificed her own dreams, so many late nights in nursing school replaced with late-night homework sessions for her kids? The smell of turkey that usually brought happiness now turned to ash in her mouth. As she fought the urge to retreat into a silence that mirrored her sacrifices, the weight of the family's collective gaze pressed against her chest. Would they validate her years of tireless care? Or was Beth's accusation the culmination of their unnoticed burdens? Clara's emotions churned in a whirlwind, fear of judgment mixed with determination to defend herself against the gulf of time and effort that hadn't earned her a single acknowledgement. For years, she had swallowed her ambitions, standing strong like a guardian tree against the storms of life. The dream of becoming a physician had slowly faded, tucked away beneath layers of children's school events and endless bills. With each passing Thanksgiving, her hopes eroded a little more, leaving behind a taut landscape of regret and unfulfilled desires. Clara excused herself, the clatter of silverware fading as she escaped through the narrow hallway leading to the attic. She needed space, a moment away from the living room shaking with a tension that threatened to swallow her whole. As she ascended the creaky stairs, nostalgia mixed with the musty scent of the attic. Inside, dusty boxes overflowed with memories, the perfect hiding place for the fears and aspirations she had long buried. Rummaging through cardboard, Clara's fingers brushed against something familiar, a journal, leather-bound and frayed. Her late mother's journal. She had always known it existed, yet she had avoided its haunting insights about dreams lost to life's demands. With shaking hands, Clara opened it, the musty pages illuminating her mother's struggles, the desire to be someone more than a homemaker, the dreams that had slipped into obscurity. Each page resonated, as if her mother's words echoed Clara's own unheard whispers. Torn between responsibility and longing, her mother had faced indignities of recognition. Clara's throat tightened. She wasn't alone in this battle. In revelation, she understood the unspoken truths that linked their lives, a legacy of dreams deferred, aching to be acknowledged. Moments later, strengthened by her mother's courage, Clara descended the attic stairs, resolve hardening within her. The spicy scent of turkey mingled with her determination. She wasn't just a caretaker. She was a woman worthy of recognition, her contributions invaluable. As she re-entered the dining room, her breath hitched, the atmosphere charged with expectation. "I may not have a title to show for it," she began, her voice trembling yet steadfast. The room fell silent, eyes shifting as all attention turned to her. "But my work for this family is real." As Clara spoke, the unspoken tension that had hung like a thick cloud started to lift, but uncertainty lingered in the air, waiting for that next moment of confrontation. Just then her son's voice sliced through the anticipation. "But what if we've all been wrong?" The weight of those words pierced the fragile peace, igniting questions that may change everything she thought was true about her family's loyalty and her own worth. Clara's pulse quickened as her son's words surged through her, heavy and unsettling. The air felt tighter, like a noose wrapping around her thoughts. "What if we've all been wrong?" echoed in her mind, intertwining with Beth's earlier accusation. It was a moment where the past collided sharply with the present, demanding analysis, reflection, and a reckoning. Her son, staring at her with a murmur of uncertainty across his features, seemed not only an observer but an unwitting participant in this family tapestry she had woven. How had it come to this? Clara's thoughts raced as she grappled with that statement. Were they all mistaken in viewing her as just a caregiver? Had they blindly followed family narratives, ignoring the personal sacrifices that lurked just below the surface? Clara inhaled deeply, summoning the courage from the depths of her newfound resolve, keenly aware that this was not just about defending her place in the family. It was about uncovering a truth that ran deeper than polite exchanges and unchallenged roles. She took a step closer to the dining room table, trying to align her vision with the understanding she had stumbled upon in the attic. "Tell me," she began, her voice steadying, "what do you think I Haven tea contributed?" Clara's heart raced, the question challenging yet liberating, each word punctuated with a mix of vulnerability and strength. This was not confrontational. Instead, it opened the floor to conversation, a chance for each family member to peel back the layers of their perceptions. The silence that followed was daunting. Beth crossed her arms, her defiance palpable. "You act like you were just holding the family together, but were you really engaged? We all felt you pushed your own dreams down for us." "But exactly," Clara interrupted, a flash of determination igniting within her. "I carried my dreams deeply, and maybe that's where we miscommunicated. I did want more for myself, but I also chose to invest in you. I believed in creating a home. But what did you expect? A certificate showcasing my care for you?" Sweat beaded on her brow. The confrontation was becoming a delicate dance, each word loaded with meaning and contrasting emotions. But she could not be deterred. Clara had woven herself into every meal, every late-night study session, and every birthday cake baked. Those were not merely tasks. They were contributions to a legacy she now realized had been largely unrecognized. Her daughter-in-law looked down, picking at her cutlery, grappling with Clara's words. The moment hummed with the potential for revelation. "I always expected you to thrive," Beth finally murmured, almost to herself. "But instead, I saw you become invisible." The admission hung in the air, its honesty stark and revealing. A flicker of shame danced across Beth's features, but Clara felt an unexpected warmth spread within her. Recognizing their roles in this dynamic was a rich, complicated tapestry they could now appreciate. "I invested so much of myself because I believed that the family I nurtured would understand the sacrifices," Clara replied gently, the edge of her nervousness softening. "But you're right. I didn't speak up about my aspirations. I let a quiet resentment fester. We can grow from this. I can grow from this." Yet, the internal stirrings danced like a firefly. The tension wasn't wholly discharged. As Clara's heart swelled with an awakening desire for recognition, a deeper realization unfurled. They had all neglected the importance of voicing their hidden aspirations. "What's next?" she asked, her voice growing stronger, more confident. "How do I go forward without losing myself again?" Clara could sense the gravity of the moment. It held a promise of transformation, a unifying thread for them all. In response, her son shifted in his seat, pondering. "Maybe it's time to all rediscover who we are, not just as a family, but as individuals." As the conversation unfurled, Clara felt the weight of a new journey ahead, a journey that would require reassessments, honest discussions, and a commitment to shared growth. They were teetering on the edge of a monumental shift, but her heart remained tethered to uncertainty. Clara felt the real work ahead was just beginning, and with it came fresh questions. Would she rediscover the ambitions she once laid aside? Would the others join her? And deep within, Clara began to quietly wonder, what would it take to finally reclaim her dreams? Clara felt a strange mixture of exhilaration and dread as her son's words settled in. The realization that this was an opportunity to not only unearth her buried dreams, but also to forge new connections within her family, motivated her to act. In that moment, she recognized the sheer power of vulnerability. It was the first step in her journey towards transformation, a process that lay ahead with all its twists and turns. "Let us not just look at what I haven't done," she proposed, shifting her gaze to each family member in turn. "Let us explore what each of us has sacrificed and what we still desire. We all played a part in this family narrative." Her voice rang with a clarity she hadn't fully embraced before, and suddenly it felt as though they were standing at the edge of a precipice. As her family shifted in their seats, Clara sensed their anticipation, even their tension. Beth's crossed arms slowly relaxed, and her son leaned forward, the potential for catharsis crackling in the air. "What do you want, Clara?" Her son's question was simple yet loaded, inviting her to strip away years of carefully constructed roles and assumptions. The silence returned, louder than before. Clara could feel her heartbeat in her throat, but this time, she leaned into the vulnerability instead of shying away. "I want to create," she replied finally, her conviction growing. "I want to paint again, write stories, explore the thoughts that have been stifled for too long. But I don't just want them to be private. I want to show you what I can do." Each word propelled her further into the discovery of herself. The room was thick with a charged silence, and Clara glanced at Beth, who seemed startled. "You've always been an artist in the shadows," Beth whispered, her voice barely audible. "Why didn't you tell us?" "I really didn't think you would care to listen." Clara felt a lump rise in her throat, the harshness of old assumptions surfacing. "I didn't think I would matter. I made choices for you, for our family, but I never reconciled my aspirations with my reality. Maybe it's not just about us listening. It's about you committing to yourself," her son chimed in, the supportive undertone in his voice just what Clara needed. "What do you think you should do first?" She inhaled, imagining herself in front of a blank canvas. "I think I need to find a class, surround myself with people who inspire me. I need to create space for myself, literally and figuratively. It seems daunting, but I want that journey." In that moment, Clara perceived a shift among them. No longer were they just family members defined by imposing archetypes. They were individuals with ambitions layered beneath the day-to-day duties. As their conversation continued, Clara started to outline a plan. They established weekly discussions, a sort of family support group, where they could reflect on their ongoing discoveries and growth. Would Beth finally pursue that photography project she often mentioned? Would her son take a shot at writing a novel? Each question ignited fresh sparks of hope and possibility. However, beneath the excitement, Clara felt a flicker of anxiety. What if she failed? What if her aspirations proved futile? The external conversations masked her internal grappling with self-doubt, a vulnerable reflection she hadn't anticipated. As the evening progressed, Clara resolved to channel her uncertainty into motivation. She recognized that reclaiming her dreams would not come without setbacks. Yet she was willing to embrace the risks involved. As Clara glanced around the table, an odd sense of connection bathed the atmosphere in warmth. The personal stories and aspirations shared here would become foundational to all of them, a new chapter in their family dynamic. But just then a thought struck her, sharp like winter's chill. What if they weren't the only ones battling their own ghosts and desires? Would others, friends, acquaintances, also be grappling with unvoiced dreams? The question rolled around in her mind, promising further exploration and yet implying inevitable confrontation. As the evening slipped into the night, Clara's resolve deepened. What if the next step in her journey involved reaching out beyond the confines of family, testing the waters of ambition in broader circles? And so, with a newfound commitment and questions brewing, Clara felt ready to ignite the next phase of her evolution. What awaited her beyond the walls of familiarity? Clara awoke the next morning with a sense of urgency coursing through her veins. The resolve that had settled in the previous night felt like both an ember and a flame. She had made a decision, and it was time to act on it. Today would be the day she stepped outside her comfort zone, a threshold she had long lingered behind. Her first step toward reclaiming her identity as an artist, an act of self-kindness, demanded courage. She brewed her morning coffee, the steam wafting upward like clouded thoughts. She could almost hear the murmurs of doubt, but Clara, resolved to challenge them, sipped her coffee in a calculated manner. She brought out her laptop, fingers hovering above the keyboard. The bright screen almost felt intimidating, a blank canvas of a different nature. What would she search for? Art classes? Local workshops? She needed to dive into the world that she had previously relegated to daydreams. After an hour of sifting through options, she stumbled upon a community art studio nearby that offered classes in painting and creative writing. Her heart raced at the idea of making contact, speaking to someone about the very thing she had buried. But what if they dismissed her? What if they told her she was too late to be an artist? Shaking her head as if to clear the thoughts, she took a deep breath and clicked the sign-up button. Clara's hands trembled slightly as she typed a brief email to the studio instructor. She could feel every keystroke as a step further into unfamiliar terrain. The moment she hit send, a wave of exhilaration mixed with anxiety washed over her. What lay ahead felt ambiguous but necessary. The studio would be a new temple of vulnerability, a crucible for developing her artistic voice. Later that day, Clara found herself wandering through her house, sensing the weight of her decision echoing in each room. She stopped in front of the easel that had stood neglected in a corner for years, longing for her fingers to grasp the brushes once more. Gathering a few old canvases, She brushed away the dust that had settled over them, remnants of her past musings now stirring to life, incarnating possibilities she had trapped for too long. When she was done, Clara crashed on the living room couch and flipped through the pages of her sketchbook. Each scribble, each unfinished doodle reminded her of suppressed passions. The weight of what she had given up pressed against her heart, but this moment of reflection sparked a fire of purpose. Determined to push herself further, Clara called her close friend Helen. "What if we collaborated on something? You know, you always wanted to start that art blog. Maybe we could document our journeys together," she proposed, heart racing at the prospect of involving outside forces into her plans. "What an amazing idea, Clara. I was just thinking about how stuck I felt lately, too. Let us do it." Helen's enthusiasm reverberated through the phone, lifting Clara's spirits as the realization struck that she was not alone in her struggles. The idea of shared creativity brought Clara comfort, but also apprehension. What if their project revealed her inadequacies? What if she stumbled in front of Helen, the refinement that her friend had always shown glaring in comparison to her fledgling efforts? Still, the sunlight streaming through her windows seemed brighter, and an unexpected excitement electrified her thoughts. Days rolled into weeks filled with small leaps, finding her classes, honing her artistic enjoyment, embracing her storytelling. Clara noticed herself evolving, a steady progression toward the artist she yearned to be. Each class, each brushstroke or typed word deepened her connections with her own aspirations and the people embarked on similar quests of rediscovering themselves. Yet, with every brush that touched the canvas, with every heartfelt word typed, Clara felt whispers of self-doubt testing her resolve. Who did she think she could be? In the shadows of her mind loomed the skepticism of others, a cruel reminder of judgment and critique. Would those judgments mirror her own insecurities? As she steeled herself for spurred responses in both her creative journey and rekindled friendships, the tension hung like a thick fog. Where these endeavors would lead was still uncertain, yet Clara felt the magnetic pull towards exploration. What if her art could even encourage others to summon their suppressed ambitions? Would the act of vulnerability inspire some to leap into their truths? With questions swirling and determination swelling within her, Clara set a date to unveil her creations to friends, anxious yet invigorated by the excitement of potential connections waiting on the other side. The stage was set for her first showing, but how would the world receive what she had to offer? Uncertainty flickered in her mind as she prepared to step outside the nest of her comfort zone, her newfound growth and artistry carrying the weight of both hope and fear. The moment she walked out into the greater world, would she soar or crash? In the weeks that followed her decision to showcase her work, Clara's anticipation morphed into an electrifying tension that coiled tight within her. The day of her first showing approached like an impending storm, both thrilling and terrifying. Each brushstroke she applied felt both foundational and fragile, a testament to her struggle as well as her emerging confidence. It was in moments of creation that clarity occasionally pierced her anxiety. She felt alive yet engulfed by self-doubt. The night before the unveiling, sleep eluded her. Clara lay awake, her mind racing through every possible outcome. What if someone critiqued the color choices in her paintings? What if her narratives fell flat? The voice of self-criticism echoing incessantly seemed to drown out the whispers of hope she had managed to gather. "You cannot base your worth on their perceptions," she whispered to herself, clutching the hem of her bedsheets as if they could usher her into a cocoon of safety. This mantra felt like both a mantra and a challenge, but waiting until the morning light felt like an eternity. When dawn finally arrived, she threw the curtains open, revealing a world bathed in golden light. It was a fresh, crisp morning, and perhaps there was potential hidden within the brightness, potential she needed to grasp with both hands. After a breakfast that merged nerves with excitement, Clara retreated to her workspace. The easel, the canvas, and her art supplies became sanctuaries for her vulnerabilities. She painted fervently, losing track of time, as if every stroke could exorcise the doubts that lingered. It was now or never. Attempting to channel her apprehensions into the colors swirling before her, she felt an overwhelming need to prove to herself, and to the world, that she was capable of this journey she was embarking on. Her art, she realized, was not just an expression, but her voice, a voice that had long been murky from lack of use. Later that day, she arrived at the art studio, heart racing. The gallery buzzed with energy, artists and patrons milling about, their laughter intermingling with the ambient sounds of art being discussed and admired. Clara took a deep breath and guided her footsteps towards her exhibit corner, where her works waited in austere silence. Each piece resonated with a part of her story, yet the fear of scrutiny beckoned. As friends and fellow artists began to form around her, she felt an urge to melt into the walls. What if they only saw her failures? Just as she considered excusing herself, she noticed Helen's warmth cutting through the gathering like sunlight. Her friend had arrived, and with her the sense of camaraderie. "Hiding in the corner, are we?" Helen teased, but her voice had an element of gentleness that fueled Clara's resolve. "You've built something beautiful here. Own it." The supportive tone propelled Clara's determination higher, nudging the contours of her self-doubt. She took a deep breath, her fingers intertwining at her sides as she approached the crowd, allowing herself to sink into the ebb and flow of conversations. Just as she began to savor the buzz of creativity and collaboration, a sharp comment pierced the atmosphere. "Not bad for a hobbyist, huh?" Clara turned to see a woman with crossed arms and a scrutinizing gaze. The words stung, her heart racing as she fought the urge to retreat. "Everyone starts somewhere," Clara countered, her voice steadying. The very act of responding felt a new power surging through her. It wasn't just her art. It was her evolution. There was a newfound authority in her voice, a defense of her journey that cast away the lingering whispers of inadequacy. Helen raised an eyebrow, impressed by Clara's uncharacteristic assertiveness. The situation prompted the collective group to shift, the tension lightening as Clara recast the narrative. Rather than taking offense, Clara began discussing her creative process openly, revealing her inspirations and the stories behind each piece. Her words flowed, blending with the admiration expressed by onlookers who started to engage with her artwork, asking questions that hinted at genuine interest. The more she spoke, the more she recognized her own worth. Each passing moment transformed uncertainty into vindication, building her confidence incrementally as the evening drew near. Clara still felt the weight of judgment lurking in the background, but she no longer saw it as a threat. Instead, it morphed into a challenge to embrace one that demanded she continue to evolve and prove to herself that she could exist authentically, paint boldly, and create without fear. That realization surged through her like a wave, but just as quickly, another thought gripped her. Could she truly push beyond this threshold? The journey ahead would require resilience, and as the conversation swirled around her, Clara's heartbeat quickened with both anticipation and trepidation. She pondered the possibilities of the next step. Could this spark embolden her to pursue greater opportunities, to delve deeper into her art and being? What awaited her beyond this facade of self-doubt loomed daunting yet tantalizing. The evening's events ignited crucial questions within Clara, propelling her toward new horizons but also confronting her with the daunting task of accepting the artist's life. With companions supporting her and the faint echoes of fear subsiding, she took a pivotal step forward. With resolve radiating from her core, Clara couldn't ignore the certainty that her growth demanded action, not just an opening night but a continuous journey of self-assertion and exploration. What lay ahead could reshape her entirely, but she couldn't shake the chilling question. Would she harness this moment to dare herself into the next phase of her artistic evolution? What might that evolution demand from her when she was called to craft not only her gallery but also her identity? Clara awoke the next morning with a mixture of exhilaration and a drumming sense of urgency. The gallery event had sparked something deep within her, igniting a desire to push beyond the limits she had previously accepted. The need to reflect on her experience became an unshakable itch. As she brewed her morning coffee, vivid memories flooded her mind, the way her palms had felt clammy, the taste of adrenaline at the moment she had defended her identity as an artist, and the unexpected warmth of connection she had fostered with her audience. But those lingering comments from the woman in the gallery burned in her subconscious like a branding iron. They beckoned for confrontation, not only with her critics but with her preconceived notions of her own artistry. "Not bad for a hobbyist." The words clawed back to her, echoing in stark contrast to the encouragement she had felt. As the day unfolded, Clara felt an urgency to build on her momentum. It was time to chart a path beyond recognition toward genuine contribution. She made her way to her studio, determined to immerse herself in a barrage of colors that could reflect the new clarity taking shape inside her mind. Within the confines of her workspace, she felt unbound, yet the familiar specter of self-doubt crept into the corners of her focus. She set out to create a new piece, one that would embody her evolution. Each stroke became an act of defiance against the label that had haunted her. The canvas transformed into a battleground where she fought for her narrative. Brush in hand, she questioned herself relentlessly. What message did she want to convey? How could she ensure her voice resonated with authenticity? Hours melted away as she danced between moments of inspiration and profound frustration. The unfolding visual drama on the canvas became a representation of her internal struggle, sometimes chaotic, at other times harmonious. The battle against her past perceptions deepened, prompting her to confront the very fear that had held her hostage for so long. Suddenly, a realization crashed upon her like tidal waves. Creating art was not merely about pleasing an audience, but a genuine act of self-exploration and assertion. With this epiphany warming her chest, Clara's brushstrokes took on an urgency of their own. She poured herself onto that canvas, capturing the fear, the resilience, and the raw ambition that surged within her. As she leaned back to assess her work, Clara noticed how the colors bristled with life. It was as if the canvas whispered back to her, acknowledging her struggles and triumphs. For the first time, she recognized the raw beauty and vulnerability, how each brushstroke reflected not only her artistic evolution, but also her journey as an individual. With newfound purpose, Clara realized she needed to share this piece, a representation of her transformation, and a potential catalyst for others who might wrestle with their identities. But could she bear the weight of vulnerability again? Would she invite the same scrutiny she had faced before? The fear of her work being misinterpreted stirred within her, yet so did a fierce burning hope. Emerging from her introspection, she grabbed her phone, scrolling through her contacts until she landed on Helen. Would she read what Clara had ignited inside her? "Hey, I've been working on something new. Can you come by later? I want to unveil it to you first," Clara typed, her heart pounding in anticipation of the response. "Absolutely. I'm intrigued to see what you've been brewing," came the reply almost instantly. The afternoon passed in restless anticipation. Clara continued to refine her new painting, scanning her emotions with each modification. Doubt oscillated within her. Was this too ambitious? Would this work bridge the gap between the safety of private creation and the risk of public exhibition? Each thought gnawed at her yet also propelled her toward boldness. As Helen arrived, Clara felt a rush of excitement mixed with a tinge of apprehension. This was not just about showing her work, it was about showing herself. Her fears, her growth, her potential. As her friend entered the studio, Clara suppressed her anxieties and focused on the vibrant colors before her. "Are you ready?" Helen asked, her eyes sparkling with encouragement. Clara took a deep breath, feeling the weight of the moment settle on her shoulders. But in that instant, she understood that this was a foundational step toward embracing her authenticity. The next phase of her evolution awaited. What if this goes wrong? Jittered in her mind, but there was no turning back now. This is just the beginning, she assured herself, raising the curtain on her new life as both artist and creator. But just as Clara began to unveil the story behind her work, a chilling thought penetrated her resolve. Could the world truly accept her as she had evolved? Or would they resurrect the critic within, forcing her back into the shadows? As she opened her mouth to speak, Clara stood on the precipice of vulnerability and potential, a leap she had to take. But would it lead her toward reaffirmation, or leave her gasping to regain her footing? Clara steadied herself, gazing at the canvas she had created, a vivid embodiment of her journey. But as she opened her mouth, words tangled in her throat. Helen's presence, previously a source of reassurance, morphed into a mirror reflecting Clara's trepidations. What if she wasn't enough? What if the moment she had imagined, filled with validation and support, dissolved into disappointment? "Clara, just breathe," Helen encouraged, her voice soothing, yet Clara could barely focus. The colors on the canvas swirled, reflecting the turmoil inside her. The fear of being misunderstood surged like an unrelenting tide. As she faltered, "I want to share this piece because it's significant, but it represents so much of who I am." Doubts gnawed relentlessly at her resolve. Helen nodded, her eyes steady and encouraging. "But what if they see it differently? What if this isn't enough to prove I've moved beyond the hobbyist label?" The words spilled out, the weight of expectation pressing against her chest. "You're not obliged to prove anything to anyone but yourself," Helen said, her tone firm yet compassionate. This is your truth. That's what matters. Let it breathe. Clara nodded, heart racing. Yet the shadow of uncertainty clung to her. Could they actually embrace my authenticity? Will they understand? You'll never know unless you take the leap, Clara. Those words echoed in her mind, resonating with a truth that sent shivers down her spine. The leap meant showing who she truly was, the complexities and contradictions alike. But the moment stretched, filled with the anticipation of vulnerability and a breadth of risk. I need to talk through my thought process behind it, Clara finally offered, her voice steadier now, fueled by the realization that she could navigate this moment with intention rather than fear. She took a breath, refocusing her energy. It's a reflection of how I've been redefining my relationship with art. Every stroke is steeped in my battles with self-identity. As she spoke, Clara felt an electric charge radiating from her. Slivers of her fears dissipated, revealing a burgeoning sense of strength that she hadn't acknowledged. Each word wrapped around the raw emotions captured in her painting, transforming her vulnerability into a platform for clarity. Helen listened, animated and engaged, reflecting back Clara's passion and intent. That's what will resonate. Not just the piece but your intent behind it. Clara's heart swelled with an invaluable realization this conversation was opening not only a door to her art, but also to a deeper understanding of her self-worth. This piece was not merely an object to display, it was a manifestation of growth, a testament to her unyielding spirit. She progressed to unveil her painting to Helen, gently revealing it as if exposing a part of her soul. Silence enveloped the studio as Helen absorbed the colors, the emotional weight, the essence of Clara's journey. It's incredible, Helen finally breathed, words wrapped in reverence. I can see you in every layer. Clara's pulse quickened. This was a pivotal moment. Affirmation flooded through her, mingling with an underlying trepidation. Do you think others will see it this way? She questioned, the lingering worry surfacing again. You won't know until you show them. But from what I see, you've already started to transcend labels. You're moving forward, not backward, and that's what counts. Clara looked back at her painting, realizing how she had crafted not just an artwork but a pathway to her authentic self. A flicker of hope ignited within her, a powerful reminder that art could connect deeply, even when it was shaped by fear. Yet as Helen's praise resonated, another chilling fear emerged. What if those who gaze upon it do not see the same beauty, or worse, return to judging as they once did? The specter of that gallery's judgment loomed large, and the horizon of uncertainty stretched beyond Clara's internal landscape. What if reaching for authenticity only led to harsher criticisms? As she grappled with these fears, Clara heard the sharp rapping of an idea in her mind. I need to change the narrative. If this is to be more than a reflection, it has to invite dialogue. But will I have the courage to face whatever comes next? With renewed resolve coursing through her, Clara recognized that the next step demanded her full commitment to vulnerability. In doing so, she would not just face her critics but potentially reshape their perception of who she was becoming. Perhaps it's not just the piece but the story woven into it that deserves to be told, she mused aloud. As Helen watched her fiercely determined expression, Clara felt herself on the brink of something monumental. Could she prepare herself to lay both her art and her soul bare? Tomorrow, Clara declared, a spark igniting her conviction. I will share this with others. I will confront whatever comes, because nothing can diminish the truth that art is part of my evolution. Yet, as conviction settled, the question pierced through her excitement. Would this act of bravery lead to empowerment, or reignite the fears that had once shackled her? With uncertainty lingering in the air, Clara found herself at yet another crossroads, the stakes rising higher. In the early hours of the next day, Clara awoke with a jolt, heart racing and mind swirling with thoughts about the impending revelation of her art. The moment she had dismissed as clouded with fear now demanded to be embraced, yet unease gnawed at her. True to her new resolve, she decided to channel this frenetic energy into preparation. Sitting cross-legged on her bedroom floor, Clara spread out her sketchbooks, the worn pages revealing the evolution of her thoughts and emotions. Each stroke documented a fragment of her identity woven through art, raw feelings poured into ink and paint. She reflected on how far she had come, grappling with self-doubt, and how every piece contributed to her larger narrative. But today was different. Today she prepared to invite others into this intimate world. She knew she had to articulate the essence of her painting, not simply to explain but to connect. Clara practiced tirelessly, speaking her words aloud, refining them as they rolled off her tongue. This piece she began repeatedly, adjusting her tone, searching for the right rhythm to articulate her journey. Each attempt revealed a layer of her vulnerability, and with every rehearsal, the fear ebbed slightly, replaced by the exhilaration of discovery. In reflection, Clara acknowledged her frustration. The brimming doubt: what if her truth was met with disdain? What if the judgment she feared would shatter her aspirations? These anxieties haunted her still, yet she fought against them, not allowing them to determine her actions. Determined to change the way she perceived the hobbyist label, she acknowledged the stakes in this moment. It was not merely about the art, but the courage to live within her truth. The afternoon sun streamed through her studio window as Clara set her canvas on an easel, examining it with a critical eye, wondering if it truly encapsulated her essence. She stepped back, letting emotions wash over her. There it was, a visual expression of her struggle, resilience, and a yearning for acceptance. For moments the colors danced before her, shifting and evolving as they resolved into a cohesive representation of personal growth. With renewed insight, she pondered how sharing her story could ripple outward. Perhaps those around her would resonate with her experiences. Perhaps this vulnerability could elicit empathy. They might see reflections of their own fears, aspirations, or struggles. She craved connection, understanding, and authenticity, not just for herself but for everyone who ventured into the realm of creativity. Clara took a deep breath, grounding herself, feeling anchored by the foundational knowledge that her art was not just a product, it was part of a broader conversation about acceptance and authenticity. The curiosity of that dialogue compelled her. What could this piece inspire in others? She quickly jotted down notes, the phrases flowing freely as ideas collided against one another, composing an eloquent tapestry of thoughts. Art is a dialogue. It is not static. It probes, it questions, it connects. She believed deeply in that notion. It became her mantra through every difficult spell. Yet, as evening neared, a shadow flickered across her heart. Would her expression truly draw the connections she sought? The specter of silent judgment loomed closer, whispering doubts in the silence of her studio. With each thought, her bravado teetered like a fragile balancing act. It stirred an internal questioning. Was the pain of their critique worse than the empathy she wished to elicit? Clara's moment of reckoning was approaching, and with it, the recognition that she could emerge from this forward leap transformed, or at the very least, fuller in her understanding of herself. As the sun sets, she whispered with a blend of anticipation and trepidation, I will share my truth. I will be raw and exposed, not for their validation but to stand proudly in my own. But beneath the resolute determination lingered the question that both terrified and galvanized her. Would this journey mark the beginning of true liberation, or plunge her deeper into rejection and self-doubt? Uncertainty thrummed like a heartbeat, pulling her into the next chapter of her evolution. The sun dipped lower in the sky, colors blending into an intense palette of oranges and purples outside Clara's studio window. She felt it pulsing in the air, a palpable tension that reached far beyond her own heartbeats. Today wasn't just about executing her plan. It was about confronting that lingering specter of self-doubt and discovering the strength she'd hidden from herself. As the evening drew near, Clara stood before her canvas, hesitant. She had meticulously crafted her art, each stroke a testament to her journey and her yearnings. Yet now it appeared like a stranger, vibrant yet silent, unresponsive to the whispers of her insecurities. Clenching her fists, Clara grappled with the weight of potential judgment looming ahead. How could she possibly bear it? In a moment of clarity, she recalled the years of practice, the nights spent alone in her studio, immersed in hues and textures. Each piece was more than a creation. It was an exploration of her essence, picking apart the layers of self she'd long buried beneath doubt. With that thought, a flicker of determination ignited within her. She steadied her breathing and moved closer to the canvas, daring to place her hand upon its surface. The texture beneath her fingers felt like home. A decision surged up from her core. She wasn't merely preparing for others. She was anchoring herself in her own truth, a resolute act of defiance against the shadows that dared to mock her. Clara picked up her brush with renewed vigor, knowing that this was about her journey, her narrative set against the backdrop of connection and vulnerability. As she dipped the brush into paint, she felt the blend of fear and excitement twist into something powerful. It was time for self-affirmation. Primed and vulnerable, she turned her focus inward, allowing thoughts of her past and influences to wash over her. The critical comments, the nagging sense of inadequacy, the labels that had caused her to shrink back. Would they haunt her today? Or could she choose to rise above, to mold those remnants into a new foundation? As she worked, Clara's sense of self crystallized. She envisioned the engagement she yearned for, not just as an artist but as a living, breathing, flawed human. The imperfections in her artwork mirrored the complexities of shared experiences. Each brushstroke became a vehicle for voices hers and those of countless others who felt unseen. Once finished, she stepped back, her pulse racing. The piece was unguarded yet bold, revealing her truth while inviting others to reflect on their own lives. She could feel the tremors of anxiety beginning to fade. It was in this authentic expression that she found her truest self. But as the shadows lengthened, Clara was pulled from her reverie by a nagging thought. What if revealing her art did more than invite admiration or empathy? What if it also laid bare the pain she often preferred to conceal? Her mind flooded with images of reviews and critiques. Would they confirm her fears or celebrate her courage? A sudden knock echoed through her studio door, jolting her from her contemplation. The sound amplified her heartbeat, a reminder that although she was ready to show her truth, she had not yet prepared for the consequences. A familiar voice called from the other side, laced with excitement and unknowing judgment. Clara, everyone's gathered for the family dinner. Are you coming? The prospect of that gathering threw her emotions into chaos. Would her family embrace her transformation? Would the room reflect understanding? Or would it amplify her insecurities? Who were they to validate or invalidate her choices? Taking a deep breath, Clara reminded herself of her journey. She had faced her fears within the confines of her studio, but now it was time to leap into the world and reveal her truth once more. As she approached the door, the question lingered. How would her family receive both her art and her newfound determination? Would they support her in embracing this new reality, or would it trigger old dynamics that threatened to drown her aspirations? Beneath waves of doubt, the moment of revelation was drawing closer, and Clara felt her pulse quicken with the complexities of her impending choices. With each step toward the gathering, she prepared to confront not just her art, but the very essence of her identity. Clara stepped into the bright light of the dining room, where her family had gathered, a mosaic of familial ties and shared histories. She could feel the weight of expectation mingling with the remnants of her apprehension. Yet beneath her nerves a profound strength blossomed. She was ready to embrace both her art and her identity in this defining moment. As she entered the room, she noticed the familiar faces, the warmth of her son, the subtle smile creeping onto Beth's lips, and the mix of curiosity and uncertainty in their eyes. Clara took a breath, centering herself in the conviction she had cultivated over the past weeks. Today was not just about sharing her artwork. It was about unveiling the layers of her being, raw and unfiltered. Can we gather around for a moment? Clara's voice sliced through the air, commanding attention. She scanned the faces of her family, the familiar mix of support and skepticism igniting old anxieties, but she pushed through. I have something important to share. It's as much a part of who I am as all of you are. Eyes widened as the family took their seats, the air heavy with anticipation. Clara let the anticipation build, feeling the flutter of her heartbeat anchoring her in this pivotal moment. She motioned toward the canvas she had carefully draped with a cloth, its vibrant colors hidden from view. This painting represents my journey over the years, the struggles, the sacrifices, the unvoiced dreams. With trembling hands, Clara unveiled the canvas, revealing the tumultuous mix of colors and strokes that danced like emotions across the surface. As gasps and murmurs filled the space, she felt a rush of exhilaration. Each stroke tells a story of me finding my voice, a voice I had silenced for far too long. Silence enveloped the room as her family studied her creation, their expressions shifting from surprise to contemplation. Clara pushed forward, emboldened by their spellbound reactions. I feel that art is not merely for the viewer's appreciation. It's a mutual exchange, a dialogue between experiences. I want you all to understand this is just the beginning for me. I intend to keep creating, to nurture my passions freely. Beth turned to her, the tense line between their previous encounters beginning to soften. I never realized how deeply you felt about this, Clara, she said, her voice sincere and almost reflective, dripping with the weight of their earlier confrontation. Clara's heart swelled at the acknowledgement. Yes, I've been hidden for years, but what I've learned through this process is the importance of voicing desires, Clara continued. We've all sacrificed pieces of ourselves for this family. My question to you is, how can we support one another to reclaim those dreams? Her son shifted in his seat, sensing the gravity of her words. I think it's time we all share what we've held back, he said, a newfound earnestness surfacing. Let us encourage each other to pursue our passions instead of forcing ourselves into boxes. The others nodded in affirmation, a collective understanding beginning to dawn over the table, weaving connections stronger than before. In that moment, Clara basked in the light of recognition, not only for her art but for the encouragement that rippled across the room. Vulnerability had forged new connections where silence once reigned. As the conversations unfolded, Clara witnessed her family reflecting on their aspirations, articulating ambitions that had long lain dormant. She felt a profound sense of relief enveloping her, a fulfillment that stemmed from the acknowledgement of shared struggles and dreams. Week after week, the family promised to check in with one another on their journeys, establishing a rhythm of vulnerability and support. This connection imbued Clara with solid confidence. She had reclaimed her identity, asserting her worth not just through her artwork but through her newfound role as an active participant in her family's narrative. Days turned into weeks, and Clara immersed herself in the world she had ventured into with fervor. Each brushstroke, each written line became testimony to her commitment. She built a small community of fellow artists and writers that celebrated her successes and vulnerabilities alike. With every piece she created, Clara felt more anchored in her identity, reveling in the richness of her experience. Reflecting on her journey, Clara now stood with her artwork displayed in galleries, inviting profound conversations about identity, ambition, and connection. She had proven to herself that she could shift the narrative further than the solace of her studio, inspiring others to embrace their dreams too. The transformation was not merely external, it radiated within her, a deep-rooted recognition of her competence. Clara had conquered the fear of rejection, emerging vibrant and fulfilled. Supported by those she loved, she moved throughout the room at her latest opening, mingling with new friends who had become family through shared passion. Clara felt the pang of her earlier years drift away. She had become, undeniably, an artist in her own right, recognized not only in her work but within the relationship she fostered. In that moment of clarity, she knew she would never again underestimate the power of her voice or the importance of reaching for her dreams. Clara had achieved her goal not just to create art but to cultivate an authentic life bustling with creativity and connection. With excitement surging, she was ready to keep challenging herself, embracing the world outside the cocoon of her comfort, knowing that ever onward would be a journey paved with purpose, discovery, and unyielding resolve. Now is the time for you to embark on your journey. If Clara's story ignited something within you, you need to subscribe now. This is the moment to show your support by leaving a like. Don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. Comment below with your reactions and theories about the ending, because every voice matters in the tapestry of transformation.